Hello everybody, and welcome to another Sunday night short. I've been doing a little bit more investigation work on the Settebello, and the news is not good. I'm going to be looking for a lot of replacement parts. Looks like I'm going to be learning a little more Italian to try and track them down. I might swing by the other side of the machine and show you a couple of things over there. Picked up a couple of bits of tooling this week. I'll show you a bit of tooling or equipment I made, and we've got some suspension. Turned up. My friend Martin dropped over this pair of Marzokkis that are off his Marini 350 Sport, and we're going to be doing the cartridge emulator upgrade. So I need to do some drawings for some replacement parts and get on with it, basically. So let's move over to the bench and have a look at some of the tooling. Okay, first of all, I got myself a cheap set of adjustable parallels. They feel reasonable. They were all of about £28 for the set of 6 delivered. So even if they need a little bit of cleaning up and fettling, they're reasonable. These were from Amadil, and I think they're slightly nicer than the ones that Kronos do for about the same price. Now, of course, a lot of you will be subscribing to A-Bomb79, Adam's channel, and seen him doing his metal spraying. Well, let's go a little wider for this. I spotted this on eBay. Which is, I can only see slight signs of use on one of these nozzles. The rest all look to be completely unused. There's a little bit of dirt on here. Some signs that some powder has gone through it. And this is a MWA Electrodes Co Limited, Wednesbury Engineering Limited. Oh, sorry, Wednesbury Engineering, MWA. And I have seen this set online. I found it when I was looking up sources for the powders, and the set retails for £1,200 new, and I was the only bidder on this set and paid the princely sum of £50. So even if I don't end up using it very much, I haven't had to spend a lot on it. I don't at the moment have any oxyacetylene bottles. The rental through BOC was getting far too expensive, and I wasn't using it that much anyway, particularly after I got the TIG. So the bottles have gone back. My local welding shop will sell me bottles, so I may well get set up again. And I believe you can do zinc spraying with this for effectively galvanising at home, which could actually come in handy. And kind of linked to this, I did mention this on one of Tom's videos, is a gas fluxer, which is used for bronze welding, which is rather than silicon bronze, it's 10% nickel bronze. which is quite a lot stronger, and it's much easier to build up if you've got you know, a worn bearing surface. And you use a liquid flux which is introduced into the acetylene line, and a lot of the bespoke bicycle frame builders will use a gas fluxer. You don't have to mess around at all with the powdered flux. Now they are very, very expensive things to buy, but are actually in principle trivially simple. And this is the one that I made, and you can see there's just 3 gas valves, a bypass, and an in and an out. It doesn't, and inside you've got a dip tube, so that's your inlet, that's your outlet. You just put the liquid flux into the container, bubble some of the acetylene through it. You just basically open these 2 valves and set the bypass to get the amount of fluxing you require. A lot of the commercial ones, they use like a wick arrangement, but bubbling through the liquid seems to work just fine. The liquid flux is methanol acetone with the boric acid type flux, same kind of thing as the powder flux abrasing, dissolved in it. I have nicknamed it in the past Houdini fluid, because it always seeps out of whatever container it's in and makes a hell of a mess. And you need to be able to shut the valves whenever you're not using it, or it creeps out and rots all the lines. I had to have a Viton O-ring, was the only thing that would stand up to it. And even with these valves shut, if you leave the lines connected, it will seep out and absolutely wreck the lines. And that's one of the reasons I gave up using it, was simply the hassle, the amount of maintenance you end up doing. You really need to be disconnecting it at every use and bypassing the hose. But it does produce very nice joints with very little cleanup. Now the container here is, you see it's got a nice knurled threaded collar top, and this is recycled, and it was a photo multiplier tube holder, which I believe came from the nuclear research laboratory at Harwell, and all I did was put a base on it, because it had a back cap arrangement, and I silver soldered in this ring for the O-ring to sit on. Got a little taper on the plate that matches up with the taper there, and just screws together. And it's yeah, it's worth knocking one up and having a play with it, but dismantle it and drain the flux back into the big container, hopefully one that seals really well every time. I've already taken one of Martin's fork legs apart, and this is an older style, and this is the newer style that was in Martin's. And let's come in a little closer. There we go. So you can see that they've this is using 2 piston rings with a wire energizer, as it were, for the ring. This is using, those are moulded rings. This is also a moulding ring, but with a single ring with a step in it, and it's a much more resilient plastic, though its ability to actually seal in the fork leg is minimal. it might be okay with the oil in there, but it's certainly not much good at sealing air. The other difference, initially I thought this had been modified and messed around with, but it does appear to be factory. You notice this has got a hole here, which is for your rebound damping. Well, this one, there is no hole. However, there's a little step down here, and as you run your finger up, there's a taper here about where this hole occurs, and it just relies on leakage through the rebound valve to actually do the rebound metering. But as you run your fingers up and down here, this is the diameter is varying. The machining quality is very poor, which is why we'll be making new damper rods adapted to take the cartridge emulators on the top. Now, I've got one item on the bench here that's from the Settebello, and I'll share you a couple of other things that I've discovered on the Settebello, but one of the ones that's going to cause me a lot of trouble, I think, is the camshaft, because it's wiped out the tip of the I think that's the inlet cam, and I don't know that you're going to be able to see it on camera. There's the other lobe, which is fine, but you can just see the finishes port, and I can certainly feel a flat with my fingertip. And to be quite honest, the quality of the grind is not at all good. So whether I can get that reground again, or whether I can get a replacement, is going to be an interesting question. I may actually have to end up trying to make a new cam blank. The gear is keyed on, it's not integral, fortunately. And I think my pockets are going to have to be reached in pretty deep on this project, even with the stuff that I can do myself. So let's go and have a look at a couple of. You can see that we've got some pretty black looking oil, considering the fairly minimal running it's had. And I was looking at the bore earlier, and there's a score mark up there, and the board doesn't look in particularly brilliant condition. There's very little signs of there's no wear in it, but there doesn't appear to be proper honing marks in there. So that's another investigation job. The sump strainer seen better days. The mesh is breaking up. That's only the primary filter. The main secondary filter is behind this casing, which takes the feed from the oil pump, feeds the crank, and a feed that runs up to the cylinder head. One of the bolts that holds this casing on is a banjo bolt, and I think you can see that it's been over torqued and it's nearly cracked all the way through where the feed hole is, so that will have to be replaced whether with a new old stock, a used one, or I have to make one, which wouldn't be too difficult. I think I've identified why I've got clutch slip problems, which is that this is the clutch of the touring version of the engine. You can see that it's got these clutch springs which hook on to the pressure plate, and the clutch hub is actually threaded so that the spring itself is wound into the hub. So I may just be able to tighten them up a turn, but it's a fairly unscientific way of doing it, and converting it to studs and cups and conventional springs with a new pressure plate might be the answer. But or we may be looking for a new clutch assembly. It all really depends on what I can do with what I've got and what I can obtain. You know, these are not particularly common machines. I mean, the quality of the castings is beautiful compared to some of the British stuff I've worked on. So I think that's pretty much it for now, and hopefully we'll see you all again next week.